I really, really hope this isn't brutal. But I feel like the first game is going to tell us so much. Yeah. If the Rogue does come in just flooding with Ling Baneling, I guess kind of what Dark did in his one map victory versus Maru, and it's the first game, I do feel like it's just going to snowball in his favor. That does apparently is what Rogue does, but Maru, even stronger than the past is what it feels like. Some of those late games versus Dark make me so darn confident. Are we going to get those exact same games? Well, definitely not, actually. Rogue and Dark being two different styles of players, but I guess I would say maybe I'm thinking if it goes beyond 12, 13 minutes, then I actually do favor Maru, but I am worried about the mid-game, and I guess I'd get that to Rogue.
Yeah, I think Rogue's mid-game can be very, very scary, but Maru does have that tendency to just sort of say, oh, I'm in a bit of trouble here, turtle up.
Yeah.
Just sit back and defend. And I was casting these two playing on 2,000 atmospheres last week, and Rogue actually played Ling Bane Muta, which to begin with I was surprised about. I was like, Mutalisks, really? And Maru's like, oh crap, these Mutas, you know, they're all over my bases. It's like 12 minutes in the game, he's like, right, let's just defend. Double turret my mineral lines, command centers down, and Rogue's like still attacking into him, harassing him, and Maru's just taking no damage, and Maru's like, okay, now I kill you. And Rogue is like, what? And he really did just die, so yeah, that's the one thing I do like about Maru, maybe about getting through the mid-game, is he does have a tendency to say, look, this is the moment where I just need to be very defensive, and he can do that very well a lot of the time.
He's definitely good at recognizing when he needs to just take a step back or when he needs to actually put pedal to the metal, but it's Rogue that's going to be the one I think that's a bit trickier. We talk a lot about this matchup when we're usually looking at the Terran build orders to kind of dictate the pace of the game the first 7 minutes or so. But for me, it is more, can Rogue do some sneaky things? Like, if he's going to play straight up roaches and make that the expectation, I think Maru has already proven that he's totally fine against that. He already can play against someone who is playing roaches, right? But there's sneakier things that you can do to either get into roaches or go out of roaches. And I think Rogue's certainly capable of that in a best of 7. And then, yeah, obviously can go into Ling Baneling and a Muta. Wouldn't be at all surprised to see Mutas make an appearance either maybe here, maybe on some of those larger maps down the road, or maybe even Blackburn, where it seems to be effective enough still as a surprise. You know, every so often Mutas come back into the matchup, but it still feels like the majority it's not the case, so the Terrans always have to be a little, they have to be like kind of shaken a little bit first. And they're like, all right, yeah, Mutas are a thing. Got it.
Absolutely. Starpot goes to that tech lab here nice and early in this first game. He goes straight to a Banshee. So Maru is just like, I do not want to die to anything. I'm kind of surprised to see that on 2,000 atmospheres. I thought maybe he'll play Banshee on some of the later maps, but I thought for the first map he'd just open like 3CC, maybe like Hellion Viking or Hellion Liberator. But no, straight into that Banshee, wants to be safe, can of course pressure from there as well. As he comes in, a Reaper goes down. A couple of Hellions do get pushed away in the end after trading with Lings. The only thing I will say maybe about the Banshee is maybe it's something of a statement as well. Like, hey, look, I'm willing to play Banshee on this map, and that will be in Rogue's head for the rest of this series. Like, oh, you're willing to play Banshee on 2K. Maybe I can't be as aggressive on some of the other maps where I'm more likely to be aggressive.
Yeah. Actually, that's a very good point. Usually I would go along with the Terran narrative, which is that maybe they're a little scared of what Rogue could be doing. Could he actually been throwing some roaches that I wasn't quite able to scout, although actually Maru's scouting has been very on point. And then that would help make the defense, but the alternative is that he's saying it for the future. Like, you can't be 100% sure that I'm going to play, you know, no second gas 3CC every single time, because I certainly don't think Maru is. But that's something that Rogue's going to have to deal with now as far as not taking damage, because while they're all well and good for defensive purposes, Banshees also have the potential to get upwards of 5-6 drones if the Zerg's not quite 100% on point. Even a bit more, actually, if the Zerg really is having a tough time getting back into the TVZ groove. But it looks like a couple of drone pulls away into the Spore Crawler, and the first Banshee, at the very least, isn't going to do a whole lot, as Rogue does slap down a Spire. This is, where is it? Maybe scouted by the Banshees? Maybe the Hellions at the front if they dip into the creep?
Yeah, right
that's
there.
pretty dangerous to actually go that far with Hellions. That's probably not going to be scouted.
It's a cool position to put it when he's up against the Banshees, right? And obviously what is nice about the Spire here is you're going to be basically on a time with the Banshees. They can't stick around forever. This one might not get a chance to anyway. It just slips out of there. But it does put a timer on. They're not going to lurk forever. They're not going to be able to clean up creep and so on. You're just minimizing the effectiveness that Maru can find from these. And yeah, into Ling Bane Muta we go. Honestly, I'm kind of surprised because, like I said, I casted a game where Rogue played like this against Maru on this map a week ago. And it did not look good. Like, Maru just said, like, no way, not taking any damage. And Rogue kind of looked silly, and he straight up changed how he played against Maru the next 3 maps he met him. and it looked so much better for him, even though he only won 2 of those 3. All 3 looked way better. So kind of surprised to see the mutas. I guess we'll maybe see just how he wants to use that as maybe pacing for this series as well. Of course, with this style, he is relying on those to do damage because he's behind on his upgrades, so he needs the mutas to get in there, cause chaos, and just kind of mess up Maru's setup.
As much as we can go into, he knows that I know that he knows that I know as far as the Spire play goes, because that game was really recent. At the end of the day, it's very possible Rogue just like the way that it put him, like stylistically, pacing-wise, and that he saw something that he could fix, and still thought that it'd be a worthwhile way to open a best of 7 as the guys on the desk were talking about planting doubts in his opponent's mind about what am I going to do for an entire best of 7. You don't know. Maybe you know right now, but you're not going to know for second game, are you? So Rogue is just kind of like that, a bit of a trickster, but he's got the mechanics to back it up as well. So he's going to have the mutas fly across the map, start doing some damage. Actually, might keep them here to help out, but eventually they are going to go across the map and hopefully gain some momentum back on Rogue's side. This is actually a big creep cleanup. Overlord gets taken down as well. Marine stim backwards as the mutas take care of everything by the looks of it. Of course, with the help of the Lings and the Queens, even a transfuse going down, but Banshee's very well placed to stop any type of run by while Maru was focusing on the front lines. And now the mutas. There it is. Mutas now have gotten a little bit of control, and they'll always be a threat for Maru. In fact, right now, they're still being a threat. It's not quite enough Marines to chase these down.
Yeah, this is actually going to be a little bit brutal. The Widowmine's going to unburrow on that third base, but Maru needs to start stabilizing. This is where the mutas are just going to get so much done. Those Widowmines were deadly as well, and not quite for the right player as Combat Shields is finished up. But yeah, you need to get this under control. With 8 more mutas on the way, Rogue might just be running away with this. He needs to do serious damage, though. We still talk about upgrades. He still hasn't started his own 1-1, so he needs to be here doing stuff like this, but he is.
I mean, this actually might be very intentional. Maybe not initially. He did plan on starting up that 1-1 he has with Evolution Chambers, but then saw a moment where he said, hey, this actually isn't going so poorly. Let's continue with this momentum. He certainly doesn't have enough gas to start up upgrades. He puts everything into these mutas, looking to continue the snowball. Even as he loses drones, he is still piling on the pressure. The Marine count, not stable enough. Yes, they finally have combat shields, but the numbers aren't there. The medevacs really aren't there, and Maru's supply cannot get above 90 as Rogue just sends hordes of Lings across the map. Is he actually going to do it with mutas right here?
He really, really is. I mean, that first attack of Maru getting cleaned up and just no stabilizing. I think what you mentioned about delaying those upgrades purposefully, it's masterful from Rogue. He says, look at how much I've done, look at what I've got. If I just keep spamming units, I can absolutely just overwhelm you here and now, finish this game before it goes any further, and get that 1-0 lead. Rogue does it with, well, honestly, a bit of style, honestly, in my eyes, right? He says, okay, here I am, first defense, and then he just doesn't stop. Aggressive Rogue takes the first point.
Yeah, I always love when Zergs are able to kind of fit that in. A lot of the expectation when he's saying Ling, Baneling, Muta is that it is going to be maybe heavy in the mid-game when they can max out and just throw a bunch of bodies at you. But as far as the earlier game, oh, Mutas are so expensive. They're only good for harassment. They're not going to do anything. And most of the time, that is correct. But every so often, the Zergs just build non-stop army units and send them across the map. And it really is the difference of a couple of Marines living. I wouldn't mind getting a better shot in the beginning. Medevacs evacuating instead of taking the fight out in the field, right? There's small differences that would make Rogue say, oh, okay, 1-1, macro, let's go, versus, okay, no, all mutas and attacking in. There's even an all-in back in the day based off kind of a similar idea, but I love seeing it. And I am now, I guess, a bit afraid as for what this means the best of 7, because Rogue takes it in, at the end, dominant style.
Credit to Rogue as well, that first fight, he really made sure to run past the Hellions and focus fully on the Marines, really get rid of those initially, and really just start to overwhelm ASAP. He made sure the Widowmine didn't get a connection as well. He was just playing as effectively as possible with what he had versus what his opponent had, and credit to him, he saw the opportunity, he took it, and now we move into Curious Minds for game number 2. Short map ZG. This one's the one where the Terrans have finally decided they kind of like it. But the Zergs are like, it's not so bad, you know, it's not like Beckett, it's open, so we can play around it. We can play a lot of kind of, you know, I go this way, you go that way with the lurkers. And I think it makes for very entertaining TVZ games.
Well, what I'm actually thinking is if Rogue, again, they brought up on the desk, Rogue is a lot more VODs to study as far as even more recent than a week ago, but very, very recent TVZ from Maru. I wonder if Rogue looked at this map of Dark versus Maru and said, Roaches really are a pain to deal with on this map, the way the third base has such a large concave potential, and if he's going to try and change it up Completely the opposite of Ling Bang Lita into Roaches. We will see in the bottom right of Curious Minds, already up 1. He is Rogue.
Top left-hand side from Team NV. Trailing behind, looking to fight back. It's Maru.
We're also kind of continuing our trend of not quite 10 minutes.
Yeah.
On all
10
the
minutes?
matches.
Never heard of her.
Yeah, never been there in StarCraft personally. I always just end it before the 7-minute mark. It's been a bit of a crazy day. Rogue he's gone through the gauntlet as the matchups go, and he's been very aggressive in all of them, but he has been tested most of all, by the Zergs recently in TVZ.
Yep.
TVZ is a bit of a different beast, but him and Maru, they've been playing each other a lot recently. A lot. Everyone remembers the GSL Finals because it was such a stomp, and it's GSL Finals, so it's a pretty big deal. But there's been a lot of other matches that have happened between the two, and Maru was able to get some vengeance. But most recently, Rogue did take the series.
Yes, most recently Rogue took a series in some qualifiers, right? And
yeah.
It was, they actually kind of went one way than the other, so they met once, Maru 2-0'd, didn't qualify, so he went in the next qualifier, Rogue 2-0'd. So it was a bit of back and forth, right? And, overall, I'd say they're fairly even, because, they traded a final in GSL, and then in final in Aces ROG, right?
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, obviously I think most notably is on new maps, they are 2-2. So maybe that's
there you go.
Look at. But when you're talking about best of threes, you're still talking about 2K atmospheres and another couple of maps people like.
Yes.
When it gets later in this series, Maru's been very persistent in saying these maps are not good for Terran.
Yeah, commonly I would say very much so getting 2,000 atmospheres, but even commonly getting Blackburn, the 2 old maps. But you are now forced to play on the new maps, and yes, Maru has talked a little bit about it, and he's not a super big fan, but I don't know what it is. For some reason, I always think first and foremost of Terrans who say things like, "Oh, I don't like the maps that much," and I'm always second guessing them. I was like, "Are you sure? Are you sure?" And you still win. All right then.
Beckett isn't that good, It's short, it can roach rush me. It's like, oh no, you've got to build a tank early in the game, guys. I'm so sorry.
I'm not saying Terrans are whiners.
It wasn't that serious.
No, it wasn't.
Definitely with Blackburn, right? A lot of Terrans were like, look, this map, it just ain't that good for us. And then it kind of was good for Terran, let's face it.
Yes.
These Lings are interesting because these first few Marines, okay, they just turned away. It's impeccable how he's managed to completely avoid these Lings. Like, what?
What? Okay.
Oh my god, that's actually crazy.
This is crazy. It's also focused not on what's really important, which is what's more important is that it's not a 2-1-1. Guys, there are Marines on the way, but it's a 3 racks coming out here. So we've seen some experimentation with this. Special actually did it earlier on the season finals. Was able to succeed with the multi-racks opener. Then we had Cure kind of make a statement as far as TVZ goes about a couple months ago. I don't remember exactly when. Also going for multiple barracks openers. And the way that they can play out can be brutal for the Zerg to read. The Zerg's very tempo-based. They want to have a certain expectation for how the pacing is going to be set. And the fact that this is a lot of Marines, but not a 5-minute drop, instead it's a bunch of Marines in the middle of the map, can be something that Rogue's just simply not expecting from Maru. It seems... would be not terribly surprising. He's done a lot of barracks openers, but depending on how he uses it, he could really get some easy early victories.
Yeah, I feel like it's very important for Rogue to figure out its 3 racks, right? Because it becomes very different responding to 3 racks and 2-1-1. And obviously, that's the thing. Maru all tournament has used 2-1-1s. So maybe that's a little bit of a throw-off, a throwaway idea. Anyways, we've got these Marines stacking up, and I think Rogue's definitely going to see by Marine count alone just how many Marines there are, and he should have a pretty good read. Okay, yeah, I'm absolutely going to know what this is. So Rogue knows what's up. And yet here we are building up to 48 drones, double evolution chamber. There is not a Baneling nest on the map. I am concerned because this amount of Marines is just, it's already the 24 Marine count, which is usually hitting with like a 3rd medevac. I think that's just overwhelms Rogue.
Yeah, this is the trick. It's that if he thought initially, up until he saw the actual move out, oh, it's Marine, not Hellion, I guess it's 2-1-1, he's expecting 16 Marines kind of dancing around the edge of creep. Not all these Marines blitzing on top of his Queens, which so far are trying to do their best to survive, but it's going to be eventually they're going to have a chance to use this. They're going to get mowed down. Marines simply win against Queens, guys. Not enough Lings to support the Queens, and the Marines are now going to sim again into the drone line. 26 Lings are on the way, and the Marines are starting to get awfully low. The question is, does Rogue also take economic damage on top of the Queen damage? And the answer is not so much. 4 drones go down, but in a way, Queen's going to add to the economy, right? There's not going to be any larva injects, so we might actually have a larva problem, although the drones need to get back to mining. There we go. And we don't have a lot of creep spread. So it still did a lot of damage. It still traded out. It didn't actually get into that mineral line so much.
Yeah, but I think it's enough. The resources lost is crazy. I mean, you're going to have a tank push next with a couple medevacs. You're going to come down the left side, siege the third base from that high ground as well. I don't really know what you do because the Baneling Nest only just started as well. So yeah, you might get a carapace upgrade at some point here, Rogue, if you survive that long. But first of all, you're going to have to be fine with no upgrades against +1. And a lot of Marines that are going to put on a lot of pressure as he starts Maru to come down the bottom side. There's no tank with this yet, so just more Marines. But that alone is going to force Rogue into more unit production. He has to stop droning. And maybe Maru can even just straight up start fighting this already. And
we already have the effect of missing larva injects.
Yeah.
It's such a difficult composition to use on a low larva count. Lings are the most larva-intensive unit. You need a lot of them. And that's not too many. It might be enough right now. Yeah, even though Maru had +1 finish up before. It was, the Maru just sort of realized, okay, I'm going to keep these alive. Going to add in a bit later on. And that's really going to be the kicker. Not these 2 drops, but the second pair of medevacs coming along with tanks. Yeah. How does Rogue handle this? Still limited on larva, now supply blocked, and with no creep spread to help him out on the left side.
He's going to go for a massive counterattack. It's his only option. He's basically all in Zombie Grub because he has no lair, so he can't even tech beyond the 1-1 or anything. So it is a ticking time bomb. Here's this push we talked about before. Tanks on the high ground. They're going to siege that mineral line. And now Maru can just slowly pick away at the third, and it is down to this counterattack basically on the other side of the map. Rogue is starting to move with it, and we'll see how well prepared Maru will be. No Baneling speed here as he does have a few Marines behind the wall off. Will this be enough? I mean, it's a lot of Banelings, but Rogue has to do serious damage with this. Maru starts pulling back. He might just have to go up into the main base and save whatever Marines he can. He will continue to fight for the moment. He lifts up last second against the Banes as he will have Banelings now crashing in and opening up his main base.
Rogue. He actually has a bit of a good plan here. A tank of the high ground actually is helping out. Finally going to get eaten by those Lings, and the Banelings finally connect with the rest of the Marines. Some SCVs finally going down as well, but of course this isn't all that Maru has. He does have 3 CC. He's got this gigantic army on the other side of the map. Now once again slaughtering all the Overlords and supply blocking Rogue, who is trying desperately to get another Baneling count up, but only 10 now on the way. That's still not going to be enough. More Lings go into the main base as Maru holds on to his production. Eventually, he was going to be able to do this, and Rogue is going to try to get some connections. Can't even do that as the 4 medevacs pick up. They could fly home. That might be the safest option, or they could just continue to run around and kill bases and drones.
I think he's got enough at home anyway, right at this stage, and he sees the reinforcements are chasing these units down, so he says, you know, I'll just stick around a little bit. This attack from Rogue was always going to do good damage, but he was always going to take serious damage in the same time, right? So definitely works out like that. Maru dropping here actually tries to siege this tank up. These Banelings dying on top of the tanks. The tank goes down and Baneling connects. Maru still has a severely overwhelming army supply. If Rogue could just somehow live for a little bit, his worker count is in play, but it just ain't going to matter because these Marines are going to keep on coming forward. Of course, we still don't have anywhere near Baneling speed being ready. And now I think Maru can fully pay attention to a low Baneling count, target fire them down maybe, or just split backwards either or, and he's going to win this game.
Yes, indeed. Maru is going to take game number 2. Pretty quick and dominant fashion as well. The Marine blitz through the middle just did way too much damage. Rogue, I think he did choose the best option, and the aggressive option is probably also one that he's fairly comfortable with. But it was just too much damage. You'd really have to get such an overwhelming amount of units into Maru's main base to really, truly lock down his production, just not let it do anything, and hope that Maru messes up on the front lines and runs face first into Banelings. Technically, we've seen stuff like that happen, but it's Maru, and again, that was just such a already brutal place to be. There wasn't even enough to capitalize on the entry into the production. Like, actually, nothing went quite Rogue's way.
Yeah, it was just too much from the very start. The 3-racks was obviously unexpected. I mean, this is just not how you prepare for a 3-racks. If you make like a whole bunch more Lings and you just get a good surround with the Queens, it can actually be enough. Obviously, a couple Banelings usually are nice as well, just to force them to split a bit, or target fire even, but yeah, when your preparation is Ling Queen or 48 workers, yeah, it's a perfect 2-1-1 response, but you're talking about 8 more Marines, combat shield in play. It's a completely different fight, and yeah, you're missing some medevac healing, but that is not the game changer compared to you just not having any response, so.
Exactly. That was 9 queens that went down, 20 lings, handful of drones. It's just so difficult for a Zerg player to come back in, especially when we knew the exact follow-up was going to be so abusive, even without that start. That specific tank spot can be really annoying for Zergs to handle. So I think Rogue knew it as well. Maybe there's a different map where he gives the macro, the old college try, but not that one, not with the follow-up. Tries to make a game out of it, is unsuccessful, but I'm very happy for this because just being 1-1 means that it's a pretty even grand finals, thank goodness.
Yeah, not going to go to 2-0 lead one way or the other. 1-1, going to go back and forth at least a little bit here as we get set for Berlingrad. There's some map which a couple of people have mentioned is kind of nice for Terra, and then some of the Zergs like, oh yeah, I kind of like Berlingrad too, so might be a fun one to see how it plays out. We're still looking for the 10-minute mark. We'll see if we get to find it. On Berlingrad is in the top left-hand corner. Our red Terran player from Team NV. It is Maru.
And in the bottom right, as the blue Zerg, it is Rogue. Yeah, the thing is, I honestly wonder if Rogue really wants to play into the late game versus Maru. It's been a bit of a topic, I suppose, of conversation about Rogue's thoughts on late game. Basically, the last super late game that we saw him play was a ZVZ against Dark. The one that went to a good 30 minutes, was it?
Yeah.
And he faltered a lot. Now, it's a different matchup. It's been a couple of games, and honestly, his late game is still amazing. Those mistakes aside, I think he said he was also a bit overconfident, and he kind of, you know, estimated the pacing a bit wrongly in that ZVZ, but it's been everyone today, at the very least, has agreed not to let it go past 10 minutes. I wonder if Rogue is going to be a little more forceful and on purpose. No, I do not want to handle your ghosts in the late game is specifically what I would be worried about.
Yeah, I mean, Maru definitely showed that he had some power with those ghosts as well, right? He was like, hey, look at this. He played really, really well with them, and it's going to be a challenge to play that sort of style of game. And I would say even if Rogue gets there like once, it's not somewhere he wants to end up repeatedly because those sort of games are so draining as well. So that might be part of it too. And obviously last game, Rogue didn't even really get much of a choice. He just sort of started die, right? And you know his choice then was to, do I drone up and die or do I counterattack and give myself some hope? So yeah, I mean, we'll see what the builds turn out to be this time around as Maru's been pretty aggressive, right? Cloak Banshees before 3CC, then a 3-rack, so more on the aggressive side of things. We're still waiting to see if he wants to go for one gas third command center at any stage of this series.
I think he will. Absolutely. Absolutely.
It'd be
one
crazy
game.
not to.
Yeah, one game at least. I mean, is this it? We're going to find out in just a second, actually. So you see if the second gas has been taken or not. This is such a direct path, especially when you open up the minerals in the middle. There is the second gas, by the way, guys. So not this map, not this third CC.
Yeah, this Reaper shows up really quickly. A moment sooner, it would have actually had the drone heading to the third base as well, which would have been nice, but Maru is content to damage these Zerglings looking for a kill. Doesn't get it yet. This is going to be 6 lings from Rogue as well, which is almost a sign of respect. Like, hey, look, you know, I can appreciate this Reaper shows up quick. I just need a few more lings than usual just to make sure I can push this back and get my creep tumor down. So that is an early drone sacrifice from Rogue for a little bit of safety.
Which I think might be warranted.
Yeah.
Especially on a map, again, that gets so direct when you open up the minerals in the middle, which they have been. Third hatch is on the way. Rogue, as you said, did not really get to play his game last game. And even, I would say, the first game could have been more capitalizing on something that it was preordained, pre-planned for Rogue. And this third game might be what actually tells us, like, truly, is Rogue going to play all-out aggression all the time? Or are we actually going to have maybe a bit more of a mid-game scuffle? Because I'm not really certain what you would actually prefer to do on Berlingrad. Just when I look at it, I actually think of a lot more TVTs, honestly.
Yeah. It's a funny one for TVZ, as we are just going to go medevac here with the Hellion production.
Yep.
And Rogue's going to drop a Roach Roar. I mean, if you get Hellbats as the armory goes down against Roaches, it's usually pretty good for the Roach player if the Roaches are out in time, which at the moment they might not be.
I think they will.
Yeah, just, right?
Yeah, just barely. And then the Hellbats transform, and then they have to waddle their way forward. I think the Roaches will be available. So this is very unfortunate for Maru. I mean, I saw Armory go down, and I was already a bit. I was like, oh, unfortunate for Maru. But it is funny how that's become a bit of a meme. But obviously, they're still somewhat effective, and we do still see some games that end instantly if they really are able to get that massive amount of damage in the first 5 seconds of their push. But specifically against roaches, it's not supposed to work. It's the direct counter if you actually get the roaches, which they're on the way. 8 about halfway done. As I said, the Hellbats, they have to transform, then they have to waddle, and the Queens will buy that time for the roaches to pop, and an immediate counterattack might also be the play here for Rogue. He's like, oh no, don't kill my Queens.
Yeah.
Roaches.
This is really bad for Maru because Rogue's going to have a lot of Roachling to run across the map with after this. And in theory, Maru can't save all of these units. I mean, never mind just in theory, in actual play, he just can't do it, right? So you're going to lose pretty much everything here. There's already Lings in your natural. Okay, a couple Hellions pop out to defend this, but I mean, I guess the good news, there's a Banshee, right? So we're going to have a Banshee that is going to be able to turn the roaches around. How much damage do we take before then? Because if he can stabilize a little bit right now, you know, he's got a little worker lead. Obviously, Rogue is at the point where he's starting to drone. Love these Hellbats dropping onto the Lings, and the roaches see the Banshee and they're like, nuh-uh, we don't want to be part of this. So actually, not so bad for Maru here. He will still have to start that third CC, so gets that underway now. He's actually going to go for a Hellion drop. If he can just get a couple workers with this Hellion drop, he's going to be in a grand position.
Yes, that is true. There's potential there. I'm a little surprised that Rogue didn't go for any amount. He would have lost everything that he had eventually, but if you can bust open the front fast enough, you can still get a lot of SCVs, but I think it was also the fact that the wall was finished. Nice little engineering bay in the middle helped finish it a little bit faster, and the mass repair would have gone down, so he just cuts his losses and pulls back. Still handles the Hellbat build. Yeah, that sounds amazing for the Zerg player, but then you look at the workers, it's even, and it's about to get in favor of Maru as the Hellion drop is going to find a ton of success. Nothing here to help defend, coming in way too late, and even if the Hellions go down at this point, they're not extremely useful. It does suck a little bit to lose the medevac, sure, but 11 drones, 12 drones, after I just mentioned they were an even worker count. That's horrific for the Zerg, and Rogue is just once again going to go aggressive. Nidus Worm it is.
Scanned though, and Maru instantly turns his Banshees around. He now knows what he has to be very aware of. He is super far behind on army supply, but of course he's got the defensive wall. If you can stop the Nidus going up in general, this is going to be great for him. Multiple bunkers coming through, and Rogue is like, I'm done. Drones and Aspire.
Yes.
I'm just going to hard transition out of here.
I love it. Ladder Zerg all the way. Roaches, Nidus, then Spire. Absolutely. Even cancel a Nidus from guys. So he's not even going to try and fake one Nidus for him, because I think sometimes it's kind of worth even just making the sound, right? Like, oh, I put it in front of your base, be scared. But another scan goes down, maybe realizing that Maru was onto him in more ways than one, basically. Not just onto his Nidus Worm, but also onto the fact that he was going to be a trickster. He was going to do something really odd and really funky, like go into the Spire afterwards. So Rogue doesn't try to overcommit to the ploy, I suppose, and does say, go Spire.
This is bad. This tank is not sieged. The wall is down. Now we do have a medevac that can evacuate the tank. He just lifts up. He does have stim on the Marines, though. That's going to help this out a bunch. The Banshees were off across the map, so we'll check in with those soon, as this was actually very close to being really bad for Maru, but having stim in that many Marines definitely saving him.
Yeah.
Here comes one of the Banshees back as well to help turn these roaches around. Unfortunately, the other Banshee went down somewhere along the way.
Again, usually I would love this as an idea of throwing the idea of committal to Maru, but Maru's also already scanned that Spire, so there's an understood situation here. Maru is not being tricked, and Maru, again, even workers with the Zerg, about to change, sure, but has also been able to retain quite a large army with double upgrades on the way. Feels like Rogue's defense here is going to be very difficult indeed, and I guess it's time to go back into roaches. It's not like 6 mutas, 7 mutas are going to help you in a direct engagement.
Yeah.
Not when it's this many Marines.
It's funny, Rogue's had to change his plan so many times. Yeah. It's just like he's constantly kind of just shutting himself off, right? And having to just reassess what you're doing all the time, it just doesn't work brilliantly. I mean, I like the Roach Ravage, it's the right idea, it's the best idea, but will it be enough? Because again, he's changed plans so many times throughout. First he went for the Nidus, now he's got the Spire that he's not used either. I mean, he is just going to be taking this fight. He will get this tank. He's down on upgrades, so these Marines are going to trade very well on their own. And you can see this is why Maru can just stick around and fight these roaches. Now he's targeting down Ravages, dodge a couple more Biles, and he is just standing here and trading, and that is purely 1-1 against 0-0.
Yeah, also unfortunate that Rogue's roaches came in reinforcing from the left side, not altogether helping with the Queens, because I think that also might have just about done it. As far as pushing back, this attack, which it finally does get pushed back. Not as far as winning the game, of course. Rogue is still in a bit of a troublesome spot, never really able to fully execute any one of his plans, but actually dancing around on the balls of his feet, I guess, on his toes. Like, he's doing a great job of responding to everything that has happened in this game. And I'm also wondering if he can actually do it successfully getting to this hive. I mean, this seems like one of the most insane things. If I told you that a Zerg player tried to early Roach attack, failed, then got a Nidus from, had to cancel it, build a Spire, built absolutely no Spire units, and decided that a 9-minute hive was the option, I'm pretty sure you'd say that guy's crazy, and it would never work against a guy like Maru.
But you know who's really good at executing crazy? Rogue is. So if there's one player I would believe in this situation, it has got to be Rogue a little bit. I still feel like when 2-2 kicks in, or even just now 1-1 against 0-0, fights are going to be great for Maru, and he is just moving around. I love this, just dropping off over here, setting up to hit a base maybe. I feel like Maru is right to be aggressive because his trade should just be good, even though usually you don't want to get too aggressive into Roach Ravager. There's just not the right amount of Roach Ravager here at all, and straight in we go, looking for this base. We might just get the hatch and get out of here. He's already unsieging the tanks, and he left a medevac to pick the tanks up.
Oh, beautiful.
That's sick.
That was sick. That was beautiful. Saves everything. Does have to do the awkward evacuation against the oncoming Roach army, but I think he knows that he's okay here. Now, this means that Rogue gains a little bit of control on the other side of the map, something that he's more so thinking about time buying. He needs his hive to actually take effect, so Vipers are being made, Lurkers will eventually be made, and that Hatcher will also come back up, but it was a bit of another blip in Rogue's plan here that apparently he just doesn't care as much as you think about. He's just continuing on with things.
Yep, he is about to get the Lurker Den finished, so now you can start. Whoa, he goes Adaptive Talons first as well, so he wants to be like aggressive with the Lurkers. He knows that he's going to have to need the mobility more so than the range. Maru is literally just stimmed up into the middle of the map, and he is now on the high ground, and Rogue doesn't have anything here, so that's a little bit awkward. And then the Roach Ravager shows back up. It's still an upgrade lead here for Maru as he's going to kite back from the Biles. He kills the Spire. Not really the most influential thing right now as we lose a full medevac as well.
It wasn't so bad, right?
Yeah, it wasn't so bad. It felt like it should have been way worse. And I think maybe it would have been if he didn't kill the Spire, because he had like 16 Marines not hitting Roach Ravager.
Yeah.
Anyway, I guess you get rid of the Spire and Maru still doesn't lose too much, right? But the big thing is you're giving Rogue time, and now Lurkers are coming up.
Exactly. Like, ultimately, Rogue's plan here is kind of get enough time to get to these really strong late-game units, and the answer seems to kind of be yes. He still has a lot of other problems. He hasn't ever really applied pressure to Maru, who is starting to take his side of the map, and he doesn't have a lot of creep spread to give him advance warning of things like that previous blitz or this attack, although he seems to be okay. I mean, he's got to take this very carefully. He's got to use these Vipers, right? But Lurkers are on the way. He's close to being maxed out. I think he can again hold, but it's going to be tough. It's all about how the Vipers get their abducts in there. You have it, 3 tanks getting abducted, getting a couple shots off, I suppose. But then you scan ahead and see that there are at least a couple of Lurkers still there. You can't actually jump on top of this army. All the tanks now being taken out. Just 2 remaining as they reinforce. And Rogue is he doing this? This is a good concave from Maru. He jumps on top of the Lurkers, jumps on top of the Ravagers, and suddenly Rogue supply, it plummets, and that's actually it. All right, then.
You know, it's kind of funny because it's like Rogue is abducting and abducting and abducting. I'm like, yeah, but the Lurkers don't have the range, right?
No.
And it's actually kind of funny because the Lurkers without range, they just don't get those extra couple shots off. So if Maru commits, he can just sort of surround, and that's what he does. And yeah, for a moment or two, that looked maybe a little bit concerning for Maru. Actually goes brilliantly for him, and in the end just says, no, I'm done with this. You know, you did so much this game that wasn't meant to happen. No way, we're not continuing like that. And now he takes a 2-1 lead.
That was so many tanks. And he was just like, well, my bio army's still very effective, so it's fine. I mean, if there was 10 Lurkers with range, then maybe he can't pounce on what he pounced on, but there wasn't that many. It didn't have a range, and that was kind of how it was supposed to go, guys. Like, Maru was kind of supposed to win that game, just made a little more of a action-packed series towards the end.
Exciting stuff. We're going to have to calm it down for just a moment, take a quick break, but when we come back, this best-of-7 grand final will continue.
Welcome back, guys, to Rogue versus Maru. We get into Game 4, which is going to be on Hardwire. And Maru just won the last game, giving 2-1 lead. But Rogue made a game that was all twists and turns, not exactly in his favor, actually look like a decent game. Actually, it started off looking like it was going to be a slam dunk game for Rogue, but then again, those twists and turns made it a weird one for him and couldn't quite get to that Lurker Viper stage in enough time.
It's amazing. It's like Hellbats lost, but they didn't actually lose. It was.
Do we still count this against them?
Yeah.
Does the meme go on?
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. I don't like that meme, but for the sake of Twitch chat, I'll go along with it. Twitch chat also liked the grappling hooks of the siege tanks jumping in towards the Zerg army for a clearer shot, apparently. So I love this medevac that picked up those 2 tanks. Yeah, this fight, I think it very much so is just a case of like if this was properly maxed out and your Rogue's just playing a normal game. Maru obviously can't do this, but the Lurkers don't have the range they need. The Vipers are now useless in this fight, and there's just so much bio army, and there's just nothing to really hold the bio force off. The Lurkers can't really keep you at bay well enough. You've got enough of a concave. It feels weird because you just lost all your tanks, but actually, Maru just had the numbers, and I think that was just a case of so many twists and turns to get to that end of the road. It just Rogue wasn't quite fully set up. Yeah,
again, it was Roach attack, denied, into Nidus Worm scanned, cancelled, into Spire, scanned, made, but not anything done with it, into Hive. That's a lot. That's a lot to work with.
Yeah.
Technically, nothing really went your way, and you lost 12 drones to a Hellion drop. So the fact that Rogue got to that last little highlight video right there is pretty impressive on his side. But it does still leave Maru up a game in this best of 7. And now we go on to Hardwire. In the top right for DPG, he is Rogue.
He really tried everything to make sure we stayed into 10 minutes, but it was not meant to be. Is scouting every step of the way and taking the lead now. 2-1 in the series from Team NV. In the bottom left, we've got Maru.
Was that still under 10?
No, I think it was just over.
Okay. I was going to say.
I saw chat got really excited about it.
So. Gotcha, yes.
I don't have proper confirmation, but...
I was going to say, because the Hive, I remember saying, finished around 9 or something.
Yeah,
like that,
I think 10 was doable in that last game. We did it, Zombie Grub. We summoned the 10-minute game.
Yes, it only took us 8, 9, 10, 11. That was the 11th game today. Yes. I mean, I'm just making sure addition works, man.
Math on maps. Amazing.
Yeah.
I like how we should have counted through as well. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Yeah, you can't
9,
just expect
10,
me to have a number in
11.
my head. That's impossible. Unheard of.
3 plus 5 plus 3.
I don't know.
Got my fingers out instead. Just 1 by 1.
Yeah, there's 11, though. You had to use more than just your 10 fingers.
Well, no, I finished my fingers. I'm like 1 more on top. I can do that.
Okay. We can do that.
The mental math in me can store the 10.
No other phalanges needed, gotcha.
I get to 10. I put it away for 1 second. I'm like, 11. I'm done. Go.
What a beautiful conversation. All right, so we got an SCV scout because even though Rogue is down a game, he can do a lot of things here. Hardwire has played out to be a very interesting map for me. I still love Berlingrad the most, just the way that it looks, the way that it plays out as far as the new maps go. And Glittering Ashes has given us enough good games that I'm okay. You know, you've done good, Glittering Ashes. But Hardwire kind of still confuses me as to where exactly... Basically, I feel like the pacing has not quite been, cemented on this map, where sometimes I look at the amount of pathways for a Zerg player and I see them do great run-bys, and I'm like, oh, okay, great, that's great for them. Then other times I see Terrans actually get some abusive tank positions, and I go, okay, great for Terran. So, and then, obviously that's the mix and match of a beautiful game of StarCraft, but...
I think it's a real common theme in this map pool, that, like, so many maps are like, oh, look, this thing's great for Zerg, but then this part of it's great for Terran. So like you say here, like there's a lot of bases on either side and run-by potential. But the chokiness is great for Terran. And it's the same on Curious Minds. It's small, great for Terran, but open and good for Zerg.
Yeah.
And it's like, Pride of Altaris. It's bad for everybody. Right? Like, but I mean, it is like a common occurrence where like, it feels like all the matchups have a lot of interest on these maps because there is just so much back and forth.
Well done, map makers. Well done. Although Maru apparently would not give the same credit. 2 Marines force the micro back into the SCV line, which they do rather effectively. SCVs are going to lose some of their mining time, but they did a great job as babysitters. 6 lings and an overload went down for nada.
Yeah.
A little bit of scouting, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, you got to scout, I guess. Brilliant, but I mean, that was pretty sick. Let's be realistic.
Yes, it was.
Most people like lose an SCV, right, and stuff. I mean, maybe you could even argue that Rogue was a little just lazy and just chased the Marines straight down into the mineral line as well, but credit to Maru, didn't lose anything there. Fun opening, right? We've got no reactor early in the game, so these Marine counts grow, and we're going to get like a Widowmine Marine drop to start us off. And then the factory will build a reactor behind this. I guess we'll see a tech lab on the barracks, and we start to move from there. Maybe another reactor on the starport or so. Maybe even another starport unit. He's got a lot of gas. He could very easily add on like a Liberator to follow this up or so. Looks like we'll probably just get the reactor, as we do see a couple of extra racks coming down. So reactor to give to the barracks.
Yeah, a little bit of a return to the 2-base attack. What this map pool feels like it's given us, or at least Maru coincidentally timed out his change back to 2-1-1s and 2-base builds with the new map pool, but that is interesting. Something that Rogue might have a difficult time scouting, considering that his usual Overlord not get across the map, or do not survive its journey across the map. The first drop is about to commence in the main. So obviously now Rogue, he got into the main base, he saw that it was still 1-1-1 to reactor factory, knew something was up. Now he goes, oh, okay, a Marine with a Widowmine drop. Interesting. But then what is the follow-up? Can Rogue even, I guess, a Ling outside the front, basically, to see when the move-out happens about the extent of the scouting?
Yep, this Widowmine's going to get burrowed up. Ling's got to start splitting. Oh my goodness, he wants that Overlord so badly. He drops Marines, he won't get it. Overlord survives.
I would love if this was still a perfect game for Maru, and he got the Overlord too, but he lost a Marine, so.
I'm done. Maru fanboyism. Over.
Not a perfect
Rogue, you are my Zerg now. Let's do this.
Rogue is continuing to drone up, getting double upgrades, the Evolution Chamber. So I think this, of all the builds, not being super greedy either on technology or in the actual economy, might bode well for the 2-base attack that is going to be on the way. Rogue also starting to spread that creep as Maru was forced to come back with his really not super dedicated form of harassment. It's not really ever going to gain that much. A couple of creep tumors here or there. Make sure there's no Ling on the outside of his supply depots. Stop that scouting from happening. But by now, Rogue knows that something is up. Still going to get his lair. And I would love to see a Baneling Nest for his sake.
Yep. The sooner you get a Baneling Nest, the better I feel for you. As there's a few Marines here. It's such a weird little army. The fact there's still just one medevac of units. As Maru otherwise is just set up nicely to be aggressive with just the one engineer in bay. He really wants to hit a bit of a timing here, so we'll see how that goes. There's that Baneling Nest, but of course you gotta remember, it's a long time until Baneling speed, and that's why the Baneling Nest ASAP would have been nice. Nice little scout from Rogue. He sees a lot of units, so he knows to get into unit production right now, but it's not like he can pre-morph Banelings.
No, that's the real terrifying part about this. He didn't 100% know it was 2-base. Yes, there was something with supply depots on the front, but that doesn't, take away from the idea of a third CC on the high ground.
Yep.
The Baneling Nest is going to be in time for him to morph Banelings, but as far as how much creep is there going to be used for those Banelings, that is the question. As the tanks are already here, the creeps are already going to be cleaned up. That base has to be canceled. Rogue is trying to come from behind, actually get the concave. He's going for it. The tank can't really help out, but the Widowmine just obliterated all the Lings. There's nothing but Queens left over, but at least there's a lot of them. And Maru is going to respect the power of the reinforcements and pull back.
Fair play. I thought Maru might just keep it going there, and he will get to come in again. Here is a lot of Queens. He is moments away from his +1 combat shield.
Wow.
And now he's going to wait for some reinforcements, I imagine. That Widowmine was so well played. Maru knew exactly what Rogue wanted to do with it, and he just played around it so well, and then obviously had basically a choke point with his siege tanks. I was surprised Rogue jumped on it without trying to get to Banes, but I guess even if you get to Banes, like, tanks target them down. What do you really do there? There's a lot of transfusions available, so Rogue should be able to keep this base alive now. Next tank sieging up, he needs to start getting rid of the Banelings. The first two go down, the rest are stuck behind the Queens, and this means the Marines can just sit here and deal so much damage, and this time, the Marine count will continue through the Queens, and you just cannot transfuse fast enough, and now this fourth base will be forfeit, and Rogue lost a lot of units trying to keep it alive.
Yeah, that's the real sucker punch, actually, is that if he had abandoned ship and then defended elsewhere, but defended better, maybe that would have been the better alternative. But losing out in the army fight and losing his hatchery, losing a bunch of Queens as well, although he's already replaced quite a few, and he did run away with about 5. he is again going to live. But there are those constant trades, making it look a bit better for Maru, even though he was dedicated to the 2 base. The amount of resources that have been lost between the two, especially when it comes to minerals, is pretty insanely in favor of Maru. Just so many lings lost in these defenses. And how many queens? 7 queens. It's a lot of minerals.
It's a lot of minerals indeed. Maru's just got his little drop up over here behind the mineral line. Widow mine on the ramp as well, the jump up spot, sorry, the ledge. As the other Widow mine goes off just on a queen. Nothing too crazy. Counterattack from Rogue, though, as 1 medevac will go down. The counterattack is straight in. SCV's evacuated by the medevacs. That's amazing. There's Widow mine. Oh my goodness. How? It's like a screen away.
That reach, man. That reach.
And now he kills the rest of the units from the top side. My goodness. This is falling apart for Rogue quickly. Maru up 30 supply, and Rogue is... he is going to have upgrades, right? That's like the one saving grace, but I don't know if he has enough units for the upgrade difference to matter.
Right, he'd have to catch Maru in those just right scenarios where Ling surrounds are effective against just too few Marines. As long as we're talking about direct engagements, their army versus the other army, then Maru still has the benefit here. So many more units, still has tanks, even adding on some Liberators, either to continue anchoring a push or just for harassment, which I'm sure Rogue's also going to have difficulty with, considering how often he has to pull his queens to the front line to even help his defense in the first place. This is already so close to a very important base. Only 3 Banelings going to be target fired. One does connect, though. And we're at the same time, Rogue is going to get a run by into the main base. The Lings are the main, Banelings are the natural. Decide they're not actually going to go there. Only a couple of them do, as the rest go to the third. Regardless, there's a little bit of a base threat going on as Queens hold the left side. Attacks also on Rogue's new 4th base, but more SCVs are going down. 38 so far, as a couple of Lings take down the last few. Maru managed to find a base on another great Widow mine shot, but he eventually gets pushed back, and the supplies have even evened out.
Yeah, I mean, with the worker count being in Rogue's favor, Maru has all the pressure on, on him right now. He needs to do something about this. I really thought he was just going to keep the aggression going with that drop, but now it's not happening. So, yeah, this is kind of rough for Maru if he doesn't do something sooner. Widow mine just caught 7 drones, so that's one step in the right direction, getting back in the worker game. He's going to bring this drop into the main, but there's a double spore, and Queen's back to get out of here. No, he loses a medevac. These Marines are abandoned. He will just get a few of them back, but now the army supplies are dead even in a game where Rogue has a huge worker lead. And how did it all fall apart for Maru so quickly? Just that run by. It was that one run by, and Maru just not able to really make comparable damage on the other side. As you do see Bane's busting through here, Maru will have one. Okay, well.
Sure.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, but wrong place, wrong time, right? So if you don't really have an overwhelming victory like we had, I guess, in Game 2, the idea of a Zerg forcing your hand, forcing your aggressive... Oh, Burrowed Banelings, amazing. Forcing your aggressive deployment to go on creep and not be controlled perfectly does put Terran in a bit of a sticky situation. So it was all well and good that Maru had some units across the field. They couldn't find that same success, not compared to Rogue. And that's just what Rogue can do, I suppose. And now he's stabilized so well that he's pushing away further drops. He is starting to lose drones to Liberators, which finally got to actually be on this side of the map. But even those are getting cleaned up. The sight of Hydras, perhaps a little scary, but no, we're not anywhere close to having Lurkers. Both of them still battered and bruised from the earlier trades.
Okay, I mean, he's killed enough drones now that I feel like better for Maru, because initially it was terrifying, but he's caught up on the upgrades too. He's even starting to take 3-3. Rogue is a long way off the hive, so that's all stuff which kind of makes me feel a bit more confident for Maru again. I was really worried he was down half the work account, but now I feel like it might just be okay for him. I mean, okay, there's a few Hydras on the map, but they're not going to do much else with the Hydras. Widow mines here and there, as you see one Widow mine in this mineral line, just trying to deal damage where he can. Big Link counterattack at game. Planetary is moments from being done, so the SCVs must evacuate. And oh my, what? These Lings have like the melt SCV upgrade? That was ridiculous.
That was, actually. That wasn't Adrenal Glands, guys. That was just
yeah, I know. I had to double check. Hive did just start, right? Like, what?
That was fast. Unfortunate that this Widow mine, that he's actually running over again. Okay, good split. Just a little bit off to the side. There we go. It had gotten a couple of chances, actually, to kill almost 16, 20 Lings, but just missed it slightly, which caused the death of those SCVs. Now it's being cleared out, so it wasn't just a chance to take out Ling run-bys, but it was also a little bit of advanced scouting, advanced notice for Maru to respond. Now those are gone, and it feels like Maru is going to have to resign himself to a defensive situation. You know, we've broken past the 10 minutes, guys, and it seems that we're going to get to a proper late game Thinking back to that last Widow Mine that just reached, but that one's all right.
Oh, the burrow.
Man.
Maru just tilts his head as well. I was going to say when the burrow was on the way up, it was like, at that part of the game, it was like Rogue needed to do something. It was like, well, the burrow's a great way because it gives you a chance. Then the run-by went off, and then he has the burrow to just get further ahead from the run-by as well. Does get this base, Maru, so keeping Rogue on only 4 bases. That's obviously big news as these Lings run on in, though. There's just not enough units back here. Ling's going to start getting into the natural. Will it be enough to make a difference? I mean, maybe a couple of SCVs. It's not that bad overall. Maru is dealing with this pretty well. Obviously, just burrowing Lings in the corner, though, being very annoying with that. We're about to hit that 3-3 set of upgrades, Zombie Grub. So we are going to have Maru just trading that little bit better once more as he's yet again trying to reconnect his work accounts with the mineral lines.
His game has been really scrappy, but the actual supplies, maybe not too amazing or important for either player. Rogue has a supply lead, but he's not that far up in workers, still only on 4 bases, trying to get his 5th up and running, but he has made it to lurkers, so he has this tech advantage that's really difficult for Maru to break through. But then Maru does finally have a stable 4-base economy. We know that he can actually get to the Marauder transition, eventually get to Ghost. Definitely not going to be as fast as some other games he's played versus Zergs. But it feels like after everything is said and done, we got a proper play from both players. And we'll see what this late game works like. I want to say this is where I feel more confident for Maru, but he's been having trouble against the Burrowed Banelings and the Ling run-bys.
And this few Marines is going to chill on the low ground, get a Spore Crawler. Maybe opens up further harassment here for a little while. That's nice, Maru! Oh my goodness, man. These lurkers are here, though, and Rogue has just slowly been working his way here, and now there is just no answer to those lurkers. Maru just hasn't had time to prepare for them at all, and 3rd base has to be lifted up, and this is where Rogue is really going to be deadly, I feel like.
Yeah, absolutely. Maru's not been able to stop the advance of all these lurkers. That's what's so scary. If they were still on the other side of the map and Maru was trying to drop everywhere, I still feel like he'll be able to recover. But the fact that they're already over here, abusing some of these chokes on Hardwire as well, that is truly scary. Maru is going to have one heck of a concave to actually tackle this, or hope
Widow Mines?
that the Widow Mines get some amazing shots, which so far, a couple of good ones. He's going to take the fight, but that is so many lurkers in that choke. As I said, Baneling's even coming through. Maru's going to concave, however, and actually jump back on top. He thinks he can actually take this fight at least well enough, or he thinks he has to take this fight. His last stand before the lurkers get on top of more of his economy. He's actually maybe doing it. The Marauders barely making their way through here as the Marines split just ever so slightly to dodge the spies, and apparently Rogue is barely not going to have enough to push on through. Maru taking the supply lead. What a read there for Maru. Like, who was looking at him and be like, yeah, this will work?
Honestly, for like the slightest moment, initially I was like, well, maybe there's only Ling Lurk, but then the Banes were there, and I was like, no, surely not. Well, this is expensive for Rogue, because now he has to rebuild Lurkers from 0, but he also needs Banes, and he needs Lings, and Maru's coming across the map with a 30 army supply lead. Can you stop Maru right now? It's 3-3 against 2-2 as well. In we go. Lings from the right, Banes from the top. Here comes Maru with extra reinforcements as well. Widow Mines don't do too much just yet, but these bio units do not seem to be dying. They're hanging on for a long time, but just too much Zerg as Maru will pull back off creep. Reinforcements still showing up. The Medivacs need just a chance to heal. They've got the energy as Maru's going to keep on pushing up this ramp. Now almost for a moment, almost a 40 army supply lead. Back to 30, but Maru's just going to keep on going. That one lurker gets multiple transfusions. Will stay alive as Maru keeps his Marauders alive, and this fight keeps on going, ZG.
This tug of war is going to continue. Maru is not going to let this go. He has put himself on a creep, and he's not able to actually clear it up. The Widow Mine's actually firing back on some of his own armies. Rogue tries again to use Queens as that defense. It feels like it was the same scenario 10 minutes ago, but this time around there's Ling, Baneling, and a hero lurker, if you will, trying to save the day. Eventually, Maru pulls back off of that creep, brings a Liberator forward, though, and continues to rally forward with everything that he's got. One lurker again, the hero lurker. Save the lurker, save the world.
Oh my god, 1+3 carapace as well, so some upgrades catching up a bit for Rogue. Widow Mine gets a cancel on one of the lurkers that was morphing in, so that's a little bit of something. Gonna burrow up and Widow Mine siege up this Liberator here. We die for a lurker, but again, the transfusions are good. Widow Mines need to connect here. They do get a good little bit of Ling Bane. Marauders are tanking the Banelings. That does give you space to get rid of the Liberator, but Rogue is still fighting from so far behind in the army supply. He's trying to get more lurkers, trying to stabilize, but Maru is also taking more bases because he's had 0 pressure for the last 2 minutes on his side of the map.
Yeah, this is all about Rogue's defense, which is getting a little bit scary every passing moment. He does have some upgrades finishing that, for example, example, +3 carapace finish during one of these engagements, +3 attack also going to finish apparently before Maru can actually seal the deal on this game. He pulls back for once, pretty far back, giving Rogue a lot of time to breathe. There's the upgrade. There's Rogue, I guess in person, also being able to say, okay, things calm down. Let's rebuild. Let's get the creep back out there. I will say one thing that's been happening is besides Maru getting to another base, and that's very good for Maru, is that it was so much about the tug of war. Rogue at least has been on these 5 bases uninterrupted, and he's even grabbing a 6th now that he can finally do so.
I do worry that Maru's not teched up himself right now. Stop! Don't go down there, Maru. Ooh. I don't want this 20-minute game to end just yet. He hasn't teched up, right? And to me, that's the biggest problem. You're playing a game here where you really need ghosts at some point soon. And the thing is, like, he's been able to make it work for now, but he's always been ahead on army supply, and that's starting to not be the case. So I really would like to see him do something to deal with this. As Vikings are going to shut down this Overlord, perhaps? No, they're going to go the other way as a Marine Marauder will try and shut down the Nidus. There's Lings on his mineral lines. Maru's medevacs are trying to save the SCVs. Nidus gets denied, but obviously the Overlord's still around. I think those Vikings need to go Overlord hunting. You don't want to have to keep turning around to deny these Niduses.
Yeah, exactly. By the way, this new base from Maru wasn't a brand new base. This is not a game where they both been able to chill for a long time and build up quite a bank. This is his main base that is floated over, so actually a weak point. And I think he will start to even direct his attacks over in this direction to both attack and defend that orbital, not planetary, something he's going to have to worry about, especially now that it's both Lings running by and Nidus Worms popping up. Who knows where? In this case, he knows exactly where. It's actually a very good scan. In the bottom right, the Lurkers were looking to abuse the low ground, high ground situation. Lings forcing tanks to fire on top of their own SCVs. There's the denial on the mining, at least for now. Coming from behind, however, it looks like these Lurkers are goners.
Yeah, that's just too expensive, right? You don't get enough out of these Lurkers to justify that, I don't think. Bit of lost mining time. I guess he traded some bio. I like that he comes from behind because obviously you shut down the Nidus, you don't get to retreat and keep those Lurkers, which is probably part of Rogue's plan because efficiency still has to be on his mind here with how this game is going. He's still down in supply, 40 army supply difference once again, and that has me more worried than anything else.
Ghost Academy is now on the way. If Maru can continue up the pressure and get to Ghosts, I think we all know what that actually means. Even if he wasn't in a good spot, his control of the late game TVZ has been amazing in the season final. He's going to pick up and get out of here before he gets too cornered. But Rogue, down 50 supply, dealing with harassment, trying desperately to hold on to very important mining bases. If he takes perfect trades, then I believe it. But even if we were to do that, Ghosts are going to be the next problem.
Rogue even is going to get supply blocked if he keeps losing Overlords to these Vikings, so he needs to sort that out. I mean, you don't really want to be rebuilding Overlords when your opponent doesn't have to keep on rebuilding supply depots. As this is a dead base, we're going to lift up and just save a few of these units as well, and again, efficiency has got to be the name of this game at this point. We are Nidusing around the map, and we are going to try and Nidus into the main as well once more. The Vikings are here to get rid of the Overlord, but are they just going to land initially and deal with the Nidus? Looks like that is the plan. A reinforced Marine as we find this Nidus down over here again. What about the Nidus in the main base? It gets up for the slightest of seconds. Nothing major, and that is going to be that Overlord dead as well, as Rogue has tried everything to keep him pulling Maru out of position, but Maru has been really impeccable, just continue to control this army in what has been a crazy game as we finally just lift up here and evacuate this. Low ground going to be annoying once more, but Maru has taken steps towards being able to deal with this.
Yes, it's no longer a case of if the Lurkers get across the map in a choke, Maru's in a very desperate situation. He takes it calmly. Again, something we've seen already. He's not going to panic. He's not going to overinvest into a defense unless he absolutely has to. He'll just bring his Ghost forward and eventually make the Lurkers, in fact, run away. So Rogue doesn't have that objective anymore. The objective is to actually get a foundation of the economy and get to a max out situation and then play around a bit more back and forth. But now again on the defensive, there's just so much more Maru. He's pushed back temporarily, but the snipes are going to start coming down.
Well, Maru lost like 15-20 supply on the top left, like a bunch of Lurkers just hit his bio that was just stood AFK. But yeah, with the snipes here, this is going to be worse for Rogue than it's been in a long, long time. And you can just see sniping a Lurker that's morphing. Rogue actually looks like he wants to try and collapse on this, maybe not give these Ghosts a chance. There are going to be a Widow Mine or two here. They both get cleaned out. I mean, you see just one Lurker left behind to deal some damage. Rogue catches up in supply for the first time in a while, denying the mine and getting a decent little pick off with a couple Lurkers. Definitely helping, and you've got to remember as well, at this point, a lot of the other bases of Maru are going to be mining out, so he really needs to get to a point where you know, he needs another base, and he's got to float a natural orbital probably to the bottom right corner or so.
That's true. Every time Maru takes a base in this game, it's not going to be protected by a planetary with full upgrades or 2 other planetaries beside it in some of these other more passive TVZs. Now he's taking his naturals, his mains, his orbitals, and putting them into a very vulnerable situation. If Rogue can actually afford to send over some Lings anyways, which he's been focused on regaining a lurker count. He is back up to 12, trying to get this Nidus Worm stuff to work. Has not so far, but looks like there was at least one new command center made, so that will be a planetary. But that said, planetaries only hold against lurkers so much. So if Rogue could get an Overlord down there, pop out a couple of lurkers, that could be destroyed before the ghosts even respond.
Yeah, Rogue has actually had like a good amount of bases all this time. He is starting to actually run out a little bit of economy. The economy's evening up a little bit because I imagine Maru taking a new base, plus the fact that Rogue's also mining out himself. It's also not a high worker count, right? Only 56 drones here. It's definitely pretty notable as Maru's been rocking like a 30-plus army supply lead for like almost 10 minutes straight in this game now, which is kind of ridiculous to think about that Rogue has been able to hold that off so many times at this point.
Yes, yes it is. Just with how back and forth this game has been. If you look at the resources lost, I suppose it's pretty much a TVZ, but just the rest of this 25-minute game, right? Just means at one point Rogue probably should have lost, but instead he has gotten to this funky little point here. He's about to be detected, but he did scout the bottom right with an Overlord, so that might be a point of attack a bit later on. There we go. And then he's actually expanded over to the left side as well. I think the real question is going to come down to how effective is Maru again with these ghosts. He's only lost in this entire tournament, I'm going to say, in the season finals, all games that Maru has played, it's lost like 10 ghosts max, something like that. It's pretty insane.
Yeah, his ghost control has been pretty ridiculous, and I do imagine here it's going to be the issue for Rogue because there's a reason Maru's slowing down the game. He knows that he's comfortable if he lets these ghosts get up, and he's at the point where he can afford to. Look at this, 2 more CCs coming down. This is what Maru loves to do at the 12-minute marker. It's just been such a crazy game that he couldn't. Right. And now he gets the chance to. He's like, okay, then let's go. Let's start splitting this map. I'm going to take my base by base. You do what you want to do, and I'm just going to snipe you down, trade extremely efficiently. Yeah,
and it's not like Rogue didn't try to not let this happen. It's just the inevitable outcome as he has been the one barely defending more often. Now that things have calmed down, Rogue now has to worry about the situation that is defeating Maru late game. You know, if I couldn't do it in a super even game, even one that I'm ahead, then can I do it when I've actually been behind? Maybe. Rogue's getting one of his few chances recently to actually do this. It was Dark and Cyril who would falter against it previously. Maybe Rogue can show the way. Does take out a couple of SCVs off to that left side, but we are at that point where there's so many extra command centers that's not really too important.
Yeah, there's bases to replace SCVs right now. Economy is not what it was 10 minutes ago when it was scrappy and dangerous and back and forth. It's a much safer situation right here as Enhanced Shockwaves comes through. A couple of Liberators are going to be finishing, and Maru really is. I love the Liberators too, right? Because it's not like Rogue has had the luxury of having Lurkers and a lot of Hydras. So I kind of like the couple of Libs, maybe harass, but even just having with them army is just going to make it expensive to trade against them. Of course, Rogue does have Hydra Lurker and Viper, so he does have answers, but I feel like I like what it does in terms of forcing the issue.
I'm surprised that Rogue is getting +3 melee, but doesn't got into Juno Glance. We forgot about it or not. But
yeah, it's definitely a mistake.
Yeah.
Maybe he thought he had it after he melted those 15 SCVs early in the game. Pre-hive.
He's like, wow, I can get this on lair? I really am special.
My Lings just auto-upgraded this game? Cool, I'll take it.
Yeah. But that would be a bit more effective. It's been so... The first 10 minutes had a decent number of Ling run-bys, but so much more of this game has been can Lurkers get into a really abusive position? Can the Nidus Worm actually pop up? But absolutely. If the Nidus Worm pops up in the main, there's Adrenal 3/3 Lings. Like, oh, it's going to tear through everything. It's a big if, though. Maru has also, at the same time, not lost any ghosts. He's also denied every Nidus Worm that's been attempted to actually knock him for a loop. He's been very foolproof against that. This is a bit too much for that particular army to hold on to, but more reinforcements have arrived, and that left side is not as vulnerable as it would seem. Actually, it's becoming increasingly less important to guard. All the minerals are gone.
Yeah, we have, what, like... Okay, there's still like 2,500 gas on those refineries, but... Yeah, gas is not the biggest problem, I would say, for Maru, or running out of gas to mine from, so... Maybe something you worry about later when you think about holding the 9 o'clock base, as these ghosts are continuing to fight on their own. I'm a little worried for them, but they are doing okay for the moment, and scanning up to that high ground again, a few Lings come in and they get denied pretty quickly. I was really worried that these ghosts were in more trouble.
Yeah, a couple of Medifacts would have helped out.
Yeah, I would have liked it.
Maybe a little bit.
He's got enough.
Yeah, yes, he does. Loses 2 ghosts, but eventually, I mean, he did get a lot of snipes down over there, actually. So we also have a nuke, which so far Maru has gotten... Oh, he canceled it, actually. Never mind. I'm still going to say it. Maru has gotten 1 nuke in all these super late game situations. Oh, there it is. Because he's using it.
I do like the Banelings, by the way. I feel like it's something that we didn't see Doc use enough when he got to this sort of stage of the game. It was something that Cyril used very well, and with this amount of ghosts, I think Banelings are just a necessity, because you need something that can really scare the ghosts into actually running away, and Banelings definitely do that, as Maru just kind of leaves this position for a little while, and now he's completely out of position, and this base is just going to die.
I feel like he didn't think the Rogue was going to do that. Like,
no way.
You did push into me. Oh, my bad, my bad. That's a bit awkward. He loses that frontline defense. The Planetary so helpful in guarding against, especially the Ling Baneling, with something that you've been bringing up. The Banelings are a real threat. It's in this situation, Woodamine just took down a ton of them. In this situation, the Ghosts have to run away. Usually they can take a fair few, but when it's the entire might of the Zerg army, the Bai army's got to respect that. 20 SCVs go down. The Planetary went down. Some revenge snipes towards the end, but not a bad attack overall for Rogue. It is still one that makes you question the resource loss trade. Still heavily in favor of Maru.
Yeah, but of course he's not minding the bases that Rogue is right now. There's orbital command. Maru doesn't realize it. He just saves at the end. I mean, honestly, a base is important, right? Like an orbital especially is going to have just not very many lurkers here, so they are going to start getting sniped down. This base in trouble for Rogue. And that's kind of a big deal. It's not like Rogue has a ton of workers either, so even just losing a few could be problematic. These Lings are just trailing in on their own. 34 Banelings morphing. My worry here is that it's just going to be kind of Ling Bane, but I suppose that maybe works to some extent against these ghosts. We will see. There's not going to be as much of a lurker threat anymore, though, so that's something to keep in mind as these fights continue.
It is kind of the funny thing that can happen when it comes down to these mass ghost armies is that, yes, technically a ghost for how many Banelings it takes to actually kill them. Quite a few, but ghosts are going to clump, and if there's 20 Lings holding them in place and 20 Banelings crashing into them, then suddenly the ghosts can also struggle against that particular army. They are absolutely best in a situation where they can just draw a line in the sand and take down lurkers one by one with snipes. The overwhelming just quantity of a Zerg army can be tough, but this is a nice concave. These are nice splits. Rogue actually investing way too much into this push to grab a command center that ultimately does not matter so much for Maru. Might have just killed him.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't have the army supply to fight now. He doesn't have the bank to rebuild it either. I mean, it's been an issue for a long time, right? Getting into this spot where Maru has just always had more army. You know, if you look at the army graph, it's been ridiculous. But this takes it to a whole new level. It's just going to be almost impossible, I imagine, for Rogue to take a proper fight now. And he goes into 10 lurkers again, but the problem is it's always like picking and choosing. It's like, okay, this time I'm going to go lurkers. But as he goes lurkers, he now has no Banelings, and we know how that works out against a Maru who still has 14 ghosts on the map.
In the right hands, this late game composition can look absolutely brutal. Like, you know, Zerg's looking at this situation and saying, what the heck does Rogue do? And some other people will point out that Rogue was not in a good space for so much of this game, and it's a fair point, absolutely. But then we look at the other examples of the Zergs. There's really only been one Zerg. Cyril has been able to take him down. Rogue having the same troubles that Dark did when it comes to the late game. Does take down more ghosts than he did. In total, 15 ghosts have died, but the exchange, 41 lurkers. A couple of last snipes go down. While the attack to the right, Maru attacks to the left, takes down a very important mining base. And I think we know this is going to go, Wardy.
Yeah, Maru's just going to have too much. He's going to continue on sniping here. These Overseers getting chased away, even a Viking helping out with that. And of course, the army on the left side is just not being stopped, so Rogue has to type out GG. Maru gets his 3-1 lead. But oh my goodness, he had to work overtime for that, because this was a game where Maru was like winning big time early in the game. Like he was up 30 supply. One run by kind of kept Rogue in it.
Yep.
And all of a sudden it was back and forth and back and forth, and it always felt like in my eyes that Maru had that edge. But it just wasn't ever able to finish it. So credit to Rogue drawing a game out like that. Gotta take something from the game, right?
There was one moment that I think Rogue might have been able to win against a slightly worse player or just slightly different scenario, and that was when the lurkers were in that choke. And Maru actually took the engagement, even as the Lings came forward, even as the Banelings came forward, with the lurkers still burrowed. I think so many other Terrans, they decide that I don't know how this engagement is going to go at the very least, so they pull back. And then once they pull back, the lurkers get a little bit far forward to a reinforcement line. The pullback causes the units to group up as well, and then maybe Maru is broken at that point. But that was, I think, the one biggest shining moment for Rogue was the attempt to win with the Lurker advance, but didn't quite work. And from then on, for certain, Maru was, winning the game, especially with our expectations. You know, looking at this game at a certain point, you just look at Maru and go, yeah, you're going to win this one.
Yeah, that run by that was on the screen a moment ago, that was the one, right, where it just gets in, 30+ workers go down. Maru just can't find comparable damage, despite having an army top left and an army on the right. Rogue's able to do enough to make that game playable. This fight was amazing, because this is where it felt like Maru was in serious trouble, and then he's just like, I can take this!
Exactly.
Fighting out of the Lurker range for a long time definitely helping, and just no reinforcements showing up from Rogue to help these Lurkers out, so eventually you lose all of them, and that's critical, because it really felt like that reset Rogue's momentum at that point, and it was back into Maru's favor.
Right. And this was one of the decent engagements, but pointed out just how much of the resources went down, even as it killed SCVs and the orbital. Like, it didn't actually matter. There were so many more mules and more orbitals to replace it. And even though Maru has lost by far the most ghosts he's ever had in that game, the trade was still undeniably so much better for him. Rogue was like 20,000 resources by the very end of the game down. Pretty insane, actually. But it still seems to be maybe one of those questions, kind of like we ask, how does anyone defeat Serral late game ZVP, right? I feel like we're asking the same question about Maru. Who can defeat Maru late game DVT?
It's a very, very difficult question as we get ourselves ready for this game number 5. Match point, tournament point for Maru. Chance for him to take this one home, finally get that season finals victory. And more notably, would be 2 wins in a row against Rogue in grand finals. That's kind of a stat as well.
Yeah.
So, well, let's kick this off. Bottom left-hand side, our red Terran player from Team NV. It is Maru.
And to the bottom right of Blackburn, it is Rogue.
Yeah, because for a long time, obviously, Rogue, best of 7 offline, hadn't lost one for forever, and then he lost one in the GSL or so, right? And then he obviously also went into Aces ROG, and it was like he hadn't lost a best of 7 in a grand final, and then he lost to Maru. Like, Rogue, what's happening? Your best of 7s, they're falling apart.
Such a high standard.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, like, winning all your best of 7s.
It was a crazy stat, though, right? Like, he had so many in a row. I mean, it was a ridiculous stat. I mean, at some point, you've got to kind of, I guess, go back and actually lose some. But, yeah, it was a really crazy stat that we talked about a lot for a long time.
Yeah, well, apparently Maru has a little more of his number, and showing it here up 3-1. I do feel like Blackburn, I've actually quite loved this map as far as it comes down to exchanging blows, keeping someone in the game, at least giving us one final amazing last game. I feel like so many of them have been Blackburn. I'm thinking back to a couple of surprise mutas to help out a Zerg player who's down a couple of games. I'm thinking back to a couple of super late games EVPs where, hey, at the very least you're able to get to 30-40 minutes. Quite enjoyed this map, but it goes back to the late game question. Rogue can't let it get there. So what are Rogue's choices then on this map to get himself a bit of an advantage? I would like to see mutas. It feels like they've been a bit of a surprise here, but it's not a guarantee. I'm just like, this is like personal bias. I think of 2 games where mutas just swooped in unexpected and they won, but obviously it doesn't happen all the time. So, and Maru is going to be so aware of it after the very first game of the day went the way it did.
Yep, love this SCV, just blocks the 3rd hatchery for a few moments. That's so annoying because you don't want to take your 3rd hatchery in the forward position, right? So now you're in a little bit of trouble taking your 3rd. That's already a good advantage the Terrans have been put into use on this map for a while. 6 Lings again as well, by the way, and kind of needs them as the Reaper is going to pick up a 2nd kill right now. So denying the 3rd and 2 Ling kills. It's going pretty well so far for Maru.
Just a little bit. Just a little bit. This is still so annoying as the drone continues to be morphed into an extractor and then canceled and then morphed again if it still isn't safe enough. Wayne's going to come by and actually get the cancel finally. Another 2 gas opener for Maru. He plays it very safe. This Reaper definitely still has another job, which isn't just trying to kill the drone. That'd be so nice indeed. But it still wants to keep track on whether or not Rogue was saying, whatever, man. Have the 3rd hatch. I'm going to go roaches. Yeah, I've seen that before. Not this one. Not this time. Rogue has just taken that little loss and run with it.
Well, as a starport comes through, Ling's just going to go nibble and work their way through some rocks here. We'll see what Maru does this time, as the starport is about to be done. He's building singular Marines. I mean, I almost want to say we're about to see the armory coming down, and we're going to hellbat it up. Didn't really love it on Berlingrad. I never really love it, but Maru will try it out once again.
It's the same build, too, which I find maybe a little more surprising than the fact that it's a second Hellbat build. There are a couple other variations other than the continue producing Marines off of Tech Labless Barracks, Medevac, and Go. There's a Marauder version. There's, well, that's Marauder version's pretty much the other one, but there's even like an earlier Hellbat attack that's really quite dedicated, but sometimes you get the surprise, but oh, this is very much the same.
See, like, I want to say that I feel like Rogue's in trouble. He's droning, he doesn't really know, he's got no scouting. And yet I've said that so many times before, and the Hellbats managed to not get the job done. So let's find out. As these Marines show up, Rogue needs to start building units. He's waiting on Overlords. I mean, he's not quite supply block. He starts one more Queen. Now he starts up some Lings. He's going to lose this Overlord. That's all he can build for the moment. So Rogue, what we're going to do, you're going to have to buy a lot of time by basically kiting with these Queens. They're in a good spread to start out with. They get some good damage on the Medevac right away, so that's a good start. As the Lings try and come in, they'll get turned around pretty quickly, and Maru is up this ramp and dealing decent starting damage. Two Queens already in trouble.
I will say that Maru got far closer to the hatchery, the real scary point of the push, than I expected. But Rogue had that nice concave of Queens, did pull a couple of the weak ones back, and Maru wasn't able to snowball or even quite reach those drones, even though he got a bit close. And this has got to be something that Maru was willing to accept could happen, that this wasn't going to kill all that much. 2 Queens, an Overlord, and 20 Lings means that technically it's a better trade for him, I guess. But
yeah, I mean, I don't hate it. When you look at like the value of the trade, it's actually okay.
Yeah.
But look at everything else, right? He's rebuilt a bunch of Hellions. That slows down your barracks production. And rebuilding your and building your barracks later, everything else in this game slows down. He's got the Cloaked Banshees too. Yeah, it's weird because it's like, it feels like the Hellions put you in an advantage in such a minor way. And it's like, oh, I've got to make up for the ones I've lost, and then you're back being behind. It's, yeah, it's difficult sometimes to see the value of the Hellbats, as we do see a Hellion's going to go running around the top side. Maru has got his 3rd CC about to finish back at home, and now he is on his way to the extra barracks, the extra engineering bays, setting up for the mid-game as the lair will be done soon from Rogue. And do we see a Spire? He has taken all of his gases.
I think so. No evolution chambers. Bailey knows. Gonna keep him safe. He's gonna be able to start up surgical hooks. But there is the Spire as the lair finishes. I am feeling good about this, but again, it's just more of a personal bias. But especially if Maru is unable to quite scout this out, and the mutas are allowed to go through the middle of the map. But Maru is gonna dive pretty deep with the Banshees. Not close enough to the top right, not yet anyways, but they're getting ever closer. You're gonna grab a couple of drones, head towards the north, and there's the scout.
Yeah, as long as he definitely recognizes it, which we'd expect that Maru does, but only gets 4 drones. I mean, he did pull Queens out of position. Nice on the fly split there on the Hellbats, and he will actually walk away with 4 of the 5 alive. So didn't quite get into the mineral line, but was able to kind of put on a bit of pressure, trade out for some Banes. Not terrible.
Well, the one thing I'm really confident about is that Rogue's going to be able to find some of that mid-game momentum again. I don't think he'll be able to win like he did in the first map of the day, and I don't think he's going to try. Maybe if it really is an open opportunity. But he's going to be able to control the game. And that is good news for him, as he would probably like to create an opening to get himself at least ahead if this does go past the 15-minute mark. He's constantly trying to get some surrounds, or heck, even force out stims right now. It could be quite good as well. But Maru doing an excellent job respecting the idea, pulling the SCVs with that. I mean, that's something you just won't see from a lot of Terrans, recognizing the threat.
Yeah, and it's important too, because if you lose these Marines, that's when the Mutalists will absolutely overwhelm. As Rogue starts up his, has his Mutas finishing, but he does start up his +1 Carapace upgrade. So remember, you will be behind on upgrades, but it's not like that first game where he got momentum and he was like, oh, okay. In that case, we just do not stop. We just keep going. Here come our Mutalisks down to the bottom side of the map, ready to make a play in toward that main base. There is already 1 missile turret up on the edge, 1 in the mineral line. Plenty of time to respond here as Maru is. If that combat shields, well, it's probably the most exposed thing, but Rogue ain't going to go for it. He's going to go a little bit deeper here, and Maru can start splitting between main and natural with these Marines. Yeah, you lose a few SCVs, but really not that bad.
Yeah, it's kind of funny how that works out. You know, the Terran players, similar to, I guess, a Zerg player, and ZVP will skip the middle missile turrets, and Rogue was like, I think he skipped it. So he does grab a couple of SCVs, but nothing huge. Loses a muta in the process, too, so that's quite expensive for him. But he's applied that pressure over to Maru. Now, Maru handles this really nicely. At the end of the day, he was already prepared. He doesn't get shocked. He's not having his army on the other side of the map that's not being paid attention to, and then he gets killed. That's the worst case scenario. Best case scenario is kind of this one, which is that he already has the mutas under control. But Rogue has the ability to spread the creep, get the drones, get the bases, get the upgrades, and hopefully take a decent fight through the middle, because one thing, of course, that he does not have going for him are upgrades.
Credit to this Banshee finding a few extra drones. This is really nice. Just a little bit of final damage before you go down. You get 5 workers. Will not complain about that. As, yeah, Maru not skipping a beat on his upgrades, getting that drilling claws up. And, of course, we'll see how this goes. I love the burrow. I think the burrow, remember last game, we didn't see a lot of it later on, but early, initially, it really did help Rogue out in a lot of key moments.
They were pretty awesome for the first 10 minutes of that game, 15 minutes of that game. But as the game got more hectic, and as I think there was also just, I mean, more things to do, but also more scans available for Maru, it just became something that Rogue didn't think would be worth it or wanted to pay attention to. But here, there's a couple of really obvious places to put banelings through the attack paths. There's basically 3 of them on this map, south, center, and north. But also plant them aggressively. If you actually get Maru to play a super defensive game, you can even place the Broad banelings a little bit far forward. We'd love to see that as well. Right now, Rogue seems to be doing just kind of cleanup work. He's making sure that this map is good for him, I guess, as far as the future goes. So Rock's being cleaned up. Hive is on the way. And I guess we're going to see at least one big mid-game layer-based army from the Zerg. Lots of banelings just got morphed, but sights are set on the Hive.
Yeah, absolutely, as these lings are just going to nibble down and clean up those rocks. The hatchery on the bottom side again getting going. And an extractor top right. Just gonna chill out a little bit, aren't we, ZG? I don't think Maru has much intentions of getting going anytime soon. Rogue wants to get up to his Hydra Den. A little long run by here. Doesn't go very far. Beautifully defended by Maru. We'll see if Maru does anything, but honestly, with the way his late game goes, I feel like Maru almost makes a mistake by being aggressive right now.
Yes, I absolutely agree. I think he should keep tabs on Rogue, and he should always respect the idea of a Zerg player who also gets to 5, 6, 7 bases without too much happening, but I think late game has been very dominant for Maru. So this is a maxed out army. 3-3 is on the way for Maru, but still has that upgrade lead. SC2 is also only just started for Rogue. Rogue's gonna try and take the fight, at least to start things off, but Maru, so much of his army is off creep that I'm actually kind of surprised that Rogue's continuing to do this way off of creep. At this point, there's so much bio left over. If he's gonna commit to this, the banelings are getting thrown into a fanned-out Marine Concave. Some of them do connect, and Rogue does have the ability to remax to a certain extent, but, I mean, that seems so dangerous.
Completely unnecessary. It wasn't even, like, super terrible, but when you're not forced to take that fight, you don't take it, you know? Make the most of being efficient when you can be, and sometimes efficiency for the Zerg is not fighting. You know, it's more efficient to not lose more units than your opponent, so I don't get that at all. The Thor dropped into the center. That was a cool move from Maru. Soaked some Banes, took some shots on the mutas. I don't know, like, it doesn't even feel like he cleared up supply to kind of rebuild anything else, right? I mean, he's got 8 Hydras. It's not a huge amount ready to move into Lurkers. Night is coming up.
I think the idea might just more be that he really did push Maru entirely back. He took out all these splash units as well. It really was just the bio left over. And it took a little while to really clean up. So it was not the worst trade, especially some of the trades we've seen in other TVZs. It really wasn't. It just seemed so unlikely for a Zerg player to go, 10, 20 seconds off the creep. That's what was kind of surprising about it. But Rogue, I think, had his plan, and it still worked out to a degree. Remaxes, get up his upgrades, get up his Lurkers, and getting up another Nidus Worm. And this is still a more comfortable spot than last game for Rogue.
Yes, I definitely feel, I mean, obviously, he's just going to be having everything set up. He's got a ton of drones, all of his bases. He is going to try and take that 12 o'clock as well ready to try and get the bases mining over Maru. That's obviously the issue on this map in general. If one player can get the top or bottom bases and the other does not, it generally becomes a little bit unfair. Nice unburrow, reburrow there eventually as the Widow Mines do actually hit the bio units as well. You can see a few ghosts showing up. Ghosts are amazing against lings, so just lings there. Those things have to turn around. They're scared of the ghosts, and Maru, well, at least he has ghosts, because obviously some snipes will be nice here. He's also getting the tanks up to try and hold positions just like this one.
Maru's really locking up his bases nice and tight. We even got missile turrets every which way we look, including in the main base with the center tower, to be aware of any, well, incoming mutas, yes, but also any incoming overlords are going to try and slap down a sneaky Nidus Worm, which so many players have tried to do and been very unsuccessful so far. There's one of them, which should be very much in Maru's sights, but he's also handling the defense, pulling back the ghosts, migrating and not actually excessively well. There's a lot of bio got taken down there. It looks like the Netterstorm was being paid attention to. How I count Maru, I don't even know. But he did take kind of a nasty loss on the front lines. 21 SCVs.
Yeah.
Ghost not in position
That hurts.
quite yet. And a maxed out Rogue still ready to go. Once again, going to dive off creep, but this one make a little more sense. What does Maru actually have? Well, he's got a ton of SimCity. His ghosts are going to split and actually soak up a ton of these Banelings, but more SCVs will go down. 37 in total, as Rogue now has a 50 supply lead.
Yeah, SCVs are the biggest issue. I feel like the armies are doing fine for Maru, but he needs his SCVs, otherwise he can't keep rebuilding off this while Rogue has money to spend. That command center just gets an SCV on it to save it. And that's critical in a moment where you may just need an extra base to rebuild some SCVs off of. It just speeds up that process. So, yeah, Rogue just keeps on going, and he really is just not trading well, as we know he shouldn't be, but he's mining enough. You know, it's good enough on the income graph. Right. It's massively in his favor. And that's where Maru just doesn't seem to be making any progress at all, because he's fully sat back, and so Rogue is happy to take the chance to just throw units at him. That's
what's missing from some of these other games, is the income graph wasn't as so one-sided for Rogue, but now it absolutely is. One wouldn't mind digging a beautiful shot on some Lings to the top left, but still enough of them going to be taking on this planetary, which can't be repaired because Maru's trying to micro in multiple places at once. So the planetary does go down. Other command center will replace it very quickly, but Maru is not able to stabilize. He's not actually getting to a good 150, I would say, is a point where you start to feel a little more confident. He's been trapped just under that supply, still with a decent number of ghosts, yes, but not a whole lot to cover those ghosts. And ghosts alone can only do so much.
Yeah, ghosts can only do so much, and that's the issue. It feels like Maru just never quite got into his full late game, right? Like, Rogue hit, and he hit a lot of the economy, especially just before Maru was really able to get comfortable. And so then Maru can't quite rebuild for the, even though he's trading well, he just doesn't have any rebuild, while Rogue has all the rebuild available to him. And a couple more tanks going down now as well. Okay, only one of them goes down, but again, Rogue is holding a dominant position in this game. He's got bases mining on the top side of the map as well. And he should, at some point here, overwhelm Maru, because there's just no staying in this with this amount of Banelings morphing in and the lurker support.
Yeah, Maru just can't get any minerals. His income is absolutely garbage. Another great Widowmine shot. And not enough to make up for the differences. Rogue he had a handle on this game in such a good way that it was almost deceiving. You looked at it and you said, it's not bad for either player, right? And then all of a sudden, Rogue's decision-making, his aggression was always the right call. It always kept Maru under his thumb. Maru was suppressed for far too long in this game. And eventually, the 20 deficit, the 30 deficit became a 50, 60, now almost 80 supply deficit. And Rogue is just going to easy peasy walk his way to a victory, at least in this game. Finally put another point on the board. It'll eventually happen, and I'm a little surprised. I don't know what Maru was thinking he's going to try and do here, but he's really hoping that, I guess, Rogue over-commits to a deadly trade. It's not happened quite so yet.
Yeah, maybe like overbuilds lurkers and doesn't build any Banelings or something. It sounds crazy, but sometimes it happens, right? But this game, Rogue is on point. He's going to clear out the SCVs again. That's such an important part of this, just constantly the SCV count of Maru taking hit after hit. His economy has not been comparable to Rogue's for a very, very long time, and that is especially where Rogue has just taken advantage after advantage in this game. 100 new Lings just on production straight away. Rogue still has a bank. He's still mining off 94 drones, morphing them into Banelings and just getting ready to go again, but he will not even need to. This game has been over for a couple moments, and we've just been waiting for Maru to come to terms with that, and we are going to have this series continuing on.
Yeah, I think it was exactly that. Maru was just kind of coming to terms with it. About 45 seconds on the webcam, kind of being like, okay, I'll tap out. But it was surprisingly enough, it just quickly became a tough game for him, even though he got his 3 bases, then 4 bases up, and even was on a 5th, but it seemed at a time where it was, safe enough. That break in the middle, the one that pushed Maru all the way back, I think really just like tempo-wise was truly effective for Rogue. At the time, it was just so insane to see Azerk do it, but yeah, momentum-wise, pacing-wise, felt so good for him, as you just didn't have anything to worry about on the side of the map. There were no drops. There was no harassment, not even a couple of Widowmine drops to find a couple of drones. It really was just this hellback push. Then Maru defended the mutas, which he did a fine job of, and then go to the late game, which Maru's usually good in. This time, Rogue was so much better equipped to kind of play his style of mid to late game ZVT.
Yeah, no, it was just like you said earlier. I think at the very start you said you like Rogue in the mid game, right? And this was very much so a mid game win because Maru just wasn't quite on his full late game yet, right? So just doing very well with kind of making sure Maru does not get fully set up, cannot get to that point. And yeah, just it really all collapsed very quickly, right? Like right here, just 21 SCVs go down. I didn't even really quite notice where they were right away, you know? Everything was just kind of happening, maybe Maru too, and the next thing you know, these Banes get way too deep, and if Banes can make it to a mineral line behind all that Sim City and the tank fire, that's the issue. You can't be losing SCVs in that scenario.
Right, and again, that was, even with the highlights we saw, this sum of the game was that at first it was okay, then it was a 20 supply deficit, 40 supply, eventually 60, and it just really was no recovery. It was slow and steady, even though many of the engagements were a bit explosive, so many Banelings roly-polying in there. It was actually slow and steady. So Rogue brings us to Glittering Ashes. Now this is really interesting, right? Because I think we kind of looked at this as Maru having the better late game, which I'm still going to hold to, even though that last game didn't go well for him. But at the beginning of this series, we talked about the last few maps. Glittering Ashes, and if Rogue wins this one, on to Pride of Alteris. What are we thinking now that we've seen at least a little bit of a pushback from Rogue late game, and we're forced onto such a large map?
I think Maru has to win it here. I think if you go into Pride, you've got no hope. I know that's pessimistic, but it's a massive map. Terrans do not do well on massive maps. Rogue is going to have bases for days, and it doesn't matter if you want to play late game as Maru, because he's going to do exactly what he just did here, with bases galore, and even if you hold on well, he's going to keep swarming you for what seems like forever. So I just think you've got to win it here as Maru. Yes, this is a big map at least, but you've got the chokes, you've got the positions you can make use of. I think this is Maru's best shot at taking this down. He's in the bottom left corner from Team NV, Maru.
In the top right for Team DPG, he is Rogue. The drama I was hoping for, Wardy. Exactly what I wanted to hear. Maru has to win it right here, right now. Otherwise, the next map doesn't look too favorable for him. I mean, we kind of also, I think, when we still weren't live, the guys were still on the desk, you were pointing out, like, oh, Rogue didn't choose Pride?
Yeah.
You know, there's no vetoes in a best of 7. And that does actually make me wonder if, one, Rogue doesn't quite agree on the sentiment that it's a very tough game, tough map for Terran, or two, just that Rogue might theoretically say, oh yeah, I see how this map's good for me. I don't get to practice it very often.
Yeah.
You know, that's very possible. And I feel like it's almost like going into Secret Spring, right? It's not nearly as bad of a map as Secret Spring was, but it wasn't just the actual map design. It was the question of how much the players had actually played such a map.
Here's a really crazy question. Do you think Maru, on some of these larger maps now, might play mech?
Well, that's a very good question. We did see him play mech in the summer season finals, but that had a lot to do with the cross-server situation. So I want to say that he's at least capable of playing mech, but I don't think I've seen too much from Maru, even with the new maps, even with some hope renewed for mech, I suppose. I don't think I've actually seen him. A lot of Terrans do it, actually. Just one I can think of.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think so, but then I'm just trying to think what he does if he gets to Pride. I don't think Glitter and Ashes is so much of an issue. I actually think this map's okay. It's just if you get to Pride, I'm just wondering what your build is there, like what your plan is, because I really do not see what you do if the Zerg gets out of control, they suddenly get a gold base up and running. It just feels like it could be really rough, so I almost want this to go to Game 7 just to see how Maru does approach that map, right? Because we really don't get to see it. It is like the insta-veto, right, of the Terran players in TVZ.
How lofty our position. We would love for you to go to a map that you probably are going to lose. We really want to see how you lose it. How do you play this out? You didn't win the first place prize, but at least we learned something, you know? It was great.
It'd be interesting, though.
Yeah, I agree. I would love to see it, of course, go to Game 7, old typical cheesy line, but I think all you guys also want to see it TVZ between the two best players, two GOATs, really, certainly of this tournament. I mean, that's always something that we want. Maybe some more fan cheering in the background, someone get Fear Dragons mod in here, but can't actually ask for too much more than this in StarCraft 2.
This game sets up into just pretty kind of the same as before, right? Where it's just going to be this double gas starport. Did we not ask for like a single game of 3CC and we haven't had it?
I would have bet at least $5 on it.
I would have bet more than $5, EG. I'm shocked that we've not seen it still.
You're crazy, you're better than I am.
Maybe just doesn't want to be caught off guard by something that Rogue does aggressively.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's always that baseline of the two players knowing each other, knowing how they can play, and Rogue's talked about it as well. He knows how he's perceived. So just by being Rogue, you don't let some guy go for a 3cc just by being yourself. That feels pretty good. 4 Hellions are going to sneak on past. Now, Maru tried this with 2 a bit earlier on, right? And maybe noticed that it could have been effective. That Rogue is maybe being a little just off on the defense. But 6 drones go down for the trade of 4 Hellions and a Reaper. That's actually not really that bad for the Zerg. I mean, it's always, you know, army versus economy, right? But
it's whatever. It's like, the benefit here is obviously Maru has no Hellions on the map, or he'll have less Hellions than before. So now he's got 2, and if he just goes with 2, then obviously he's going to be very limited on, you know, run-by defense, etc. On the other side, like a few drones, it does slow Rogue down a little bit. I think the Zerg is like a tiny bit happier here than the Terran coming out of that, but...
Yeah, I do wonder. Yeah. I
it's like give or take, right? It's...
Your first comment, you know, like, it's whatever. It's like, yeah. All right, the game will move on. We'll move on.
Yeah.
The lack of Hellions can be scary for a Terran player, especially if they don't really believe in their micro, but of course Maru does. But, you know, the Banshees can kind of help cover at least in actually helping against a Ling Flood, but then also in scouting it too, so you don't make a mistake, like sending 4 Marines over to protect the 3rd CC. And as for Rogue, I mean, blip of in his economy. A bit annoying, they don't get over it. More annoying would be to lose more drones to a Banshee and then not actually kill it. That's the real... So they're like, gosh, darn it, the amount of dead space in the top right. Because, you know, a second Banshee's also on the way and could grab a good 2 or 3 other kills.
Yeah, we're going to bring this one around. Spore's well placed, but obviously you can just sit here and still get, like you said, kill, maybe 2. It's one of those things that's just so annoying about Banshees. That's why the Banshees are so good, because there are just going to be openings where they get in. Yeah, they'll take some damage as they do it, but they can leave in the end, get repaired, and go again. Hellions now going to try and make a play, but the Lings are here, and this is probably the end of the Hellions, as these Lings probably could have committed. They decide not to, not worth it, but yeah, a risky moment for those Hellions. It's a Spire once again, so back to the mutas for Rogue.
I mean, I love it for 2 reasons. One, it's worked out for him so well. And, well, I would say every game he's made a Spire, he's won, but then there was the...
well, we don't talk about that game.
Yeah. But anyways, and then also it is a pretty big map. Even though there's more opportunities for the Terran player to use some portions of the map, it's still a large one. So the mutas are going to hopefully have the time to actually make it out, and then they're going to have the flappy wings flying over all the terrain to actually apply the pressure and respawn back at home too. So, I mean, I love Ling Baneling Muta. It's still the classic ZVT for me, but considering everything that's happened in this game and the map that we're on, I think this is the best choice for Rogue.
This one Banshee, low HP, gets 4 more kills, and it's still not dead. Escaping away. They are so annoying. I was a little bit worried about the cut there, and he does take another shot, but the Banshee is out of there alive.
Well done, Banshee. Well done. Join up with your sister, wherever she is. Missile turrets are on the way for Maru. He was able to identify what's going on. Didn't technically Spire, but no evolution chambers, saw enough gases, or just figured that this is how Rogue is going to play on such a map. Good instinct there. Now I think it is more of a question of how does Maru play out the mid-game. So he got to a certain decent point last map, but then he really did not apply a whole ton of pressure. It was the Hellbat build, then the rest of the game, which did not go favorably for him. Now, without the Hellbat build, he can do a little bit more push and pull. Has to be careful about how the mutas are going to be handled. Doesn't want to overcommit and then lose everything. But I think there's going to be a bit more of that. And we can already see things are getting a little awkward as the mutas were... I mean, they're not hitting at the same time that Maru is, and they're going to be handling missile turrets, so they might not do a whole lot of damage, although with Lings, could be a bit of a different scenario. It still isn't a ton of Zerglings, but it's enough. Maru caught with very awkward timing on his production, but he is grabbing a base. He's getting a mass repair on the missile turret as well, as 2 Banshees help clear out the Lings. This could have been so much worse without those 2 things. A missile turret and 2 Banshees, and now Rogue, can he hold back at home? Widow Mines are burrowed, not really even having to get their shots as the Marines tear down the Banelings, the very limited number of Banelings that Rogue has. He's at 5 right now, not rebuilding anymore, and it looks like Maru is not going to, I guess, go for it. He knows he was on creep, he knows that everything's coming back home, so he repositions and now plants down his Widow Mine. So that was a little feisty for a second.
That was very exciting, and now Maru's got his reinforcements showing up. Rogue supply block as he loses out on an Overlord. He could have lost one more to the left side as well, so he's a little fortunate there, but never mind that right now because these Banes are rolling through. Widowmine does not go off. Okay, it does, but it doesn't hit anything because it's all dead already. Maru stimmed one more time, but pushing up this narrow ramp is going to be tough. He does have that 1-1 upgrade lead, and that's going to be the problem of having gone for the mutas, and the mutas not really having done enough to keep Maru at home. Here we go again. Widowmine's not quite getting the Banes. One shot onto the mutas. Maru keep working this position, and he's looking good, ZG.
He is. The Baneling number is very concerning. Still only at 7 with 3 more on the way. Upgrades only just started for the Zerg player. And the Banelings roll in single file, as Maru does still have enough Marines to, I guess, fight back very quickly. Rogue is holding, but it feels like it's a, I don't know if it's a temporary hold. It's not the best hold ever, is it? He still doesn't have upgrades. His units aren't doing damage. And he still has Maru on his side of the map, something that he really does not want to deal with. He wants to have something else happening, and he just can't. It's all about the defense. And as he pushes this back, good split there at the last second. Maybe finally he can actually send Maru packing.
Yep, and he's actually going to get a medevac that's low HP with all the units inside as well. So Maru, he's going to lose all of his medevacs here. Rogue finally finds the defense, and wow, Maru just didn't get a single good mine shot, right? Like, no, every Widow mine went off on one lane. Good splits from Rogue. I thought one was going to go on the Banes, but they did not. And that was necessary for Rogue, because if he takes one bad mine shot, Maru turns, fights, and it's a completely different scenario. 4 medevacs are still alive. Yeah, now Rogue keeps himself in this game, so we'll still have a lot of upgrade problems this game. I mean, he's going to be 0-0 against 2-2 for a few seconds, but that means he's going to be on 1-1 against 2-2 for a very long time.
Right, and it's not like his economy is really that great either. Nope. He is up on a couple of bases, that's nice, but the drone count isn't there, so this is still a problem. Like, Rogue still had to spend a lot to defend, and Maru is just right back to it. He's in a very comfortable position, going to be planning on his 4th base, getting all his production, adding on 3-3 as well, which is going to be a real killer for Rogue to deal with. Rogue needs something else to happen. He needs the mutas to start taking some decent fights, finding an SCV line that's a bit too vulnerable, something along those lines. And I would absolutely love to see Burrow again, but it looks like he's been, he maybe give up on that a little bit. Could be effective on this map, but not thinking about it now.
Yeah, I think this is one of those situations, right, where Maru can kind of look at this and say, you know what, like, this is good for me, but Rogue has also got a bit of momentum back because he's got the mutas on the other side. He's able to harass me. So Maru just says, right, I'll settle down on my 4th base. I just hope he doesn't settle down for too long, because that's something that Maru has done in this event, right? Sometimes just settles down into the late game when maybe keeping up the pressure is the better way to go about it. And we'll see what happens, as right now he is on the defense. SCVs are going down, as mutas and lings will strike 13 workers so far, as the mutas trying to find themselves a way out of this corner, and they're going to do so by finding another medevac, nearly 2, but definitely these Marines.
This is pretty good. They're able to run by and avoid some heavy losses. Only 4 mutas have gone down in this game, but for a decent amount of trades and a lot of chaos as well. That's a good point. As much as I feel confidence in Maru's late game, I guess it's more of a Maru late game where things are going okay and there's a little bit more back and forth. The last game, the one we saw in Blackburn, was not so good for him. And there's, Sterile interview saying, oh, I guess he wasn't really aggressive enough. That might have been a problem. Maybe Rogue is hoping to use the same problem. Wants Maru to actually just sit back and let him take this humongous map. Seems to be kind of happening right now, but remember that Maru's going to have at least one big push soon. 3-3, maxed out. We'll see how Rogue handles that.
Yeah, there's going to be definitely a little bit of a transition period here for Rogue where he's going to struggle a little bit, right? The Hive's on the way, but still a ways off. Upgrades are going to be massively in favor of Maru, so he does have timings. He's going to be maxed. There's not really any reason for Maru to hold back apart from making sure he's not taking damage, as these Marines are running to intercept the mutas. Gets one, and a little bit of damage done to another. Now they're going to head into the main base. Before, Maru last game had good Marine position in the main, but this time nothing. So massive stim back, and this is exactly what you need here as Rogue. You need to be getting into these bases and forcing Maru back home, not letting him ever across the map.
Yes, but I'm worried that Maru's okay with that little tiny delay, because he is just now getting everything lined up. So he could still absolutely do a push. It's very, very brutal. Rogue does not have that Hive technology. Even as it finishes, he's not going to have a lot with it. Not going to have Lurkers, Ultras, maybe Vipers, but then he also has to get the energy on them. So it's still a complicated place for Rogue to find himself still down on his last life. Maru's going to do the push. He's chosen his attack path, and he's continuing to add on command centers behind it.
That's 32 Banelings Morphiners. At least the Widowmine here will soften the counterattack from Rogue.
Oh, wow.
In fact, it will do a lot against the counterattack. Rogue has just turned away already. Now, let's see what these Banelings can do. As Maru's starting to split, he's just letting the Marauders tank. The Marines are going to run around off creep, and that's beautiful. Maru gets rid of so many Banelings. Still has an army here. Now his reinforcements show up, and Rogue has 5 Banelings on the map, Zombie Grub. He is in trouble, as Maru is going to find the 5 of them right there as well if he wants to go. Rogue, he's got an Ultra Cavern coming up, a long way from having those actually going here. Focusing on these mutas on the other side, but right now they are not doing enough, and Maru is up 60 army supply, pushing into Rogue's bases.
I think this is it. You said that it was do or die here for Maru, and he has chosen to actually go ahead and win this game, win the season finals right here, right now. Rogue down 60 supply with his last few Banelings rolling into just a couple of Marauders as Maru pulls back with ease. This is it. Maru's deep into Rogue's territory, into the natural on top of all of his reinforcement points, and there you have it. Maru is going to take the 4-2 victory to win a season finals. Not just for him, I suppose, but also for Korea. You can now officially list it. Of course, one of them had to, but Maru, he was denied in the summer, finally gets it in the winter.
Gets